Marco, you caused it. You shouldn't have invited her at—
Weddings are meant to be moments of joy. But sometimes, truth walks in uninvited. This day was supposed to seal happiness. Instead, it exposed pain, pride, and silent victory. When the priest asked Marco to repeat his vows, his voice cracked. I, Marco Bellini, take you, Isabella Rinaldi. The words stumbled, hollow. He risked a glance toward Elena, and for a split second, their eyes met. Elena's gaze was steady, unflinching. Not triumphant, not mocking, simply pitying. It broke him. His knees trembled. He rushed through the rest of the vow, his voice flat, almost mechanical. Isabella noticed. Everyone noticed. When it was her turn, Isabella recited her vow with perfect diction, her voice dripping with defiance. Every word was a weapon, not a promise. I, Isabella Rinaldi, take you, Marco Bellini. Her eyes, however, were not on Marco. They darted repeatedly toward Elena, sharp as daggers, as if she were vowing to outshine the ex-wife, not to love her groom. The guests exchanged uneasy glances. This was no longer a wedding, it was a duel, a silent war fought with glances and unspoken truths. At last, the priest declared, "You may now kiss the bride." Marco leaned forward, but Isabella turned her head slightly, forcing his lips to brush her cheek instead of her mouth. A collective murmur rippled through the courtyard. Marco froze. Isabella forced a brittle laugh, tilting her face for a quick peck on the lips, but the damage was done. The kiss wasn't love. It was theater, and the audience knew it. Through it all, Elena sat composed, her children watching in innocent curiosity. She had no need to gloat, no need to whisper. Her silence was louder than any words could be. As applause broke out for the newlyweds, it was perfunctory, half-hearted. The real energy, the real admiration, lingered in the second row, where a woman once discarded now shone brighter than both bride and groom. And Marco knew it. Isabella knew it. Everyone knew it. The wedding was unraveling. The sun had begun its slow descent over the Tuscan hills, painting the villa's gardens in hues of amber and rose. The ceremony was over, but instead of relief, the air buzzed with unease. The newlyweds had said their vows, yet the whispers hadn't stopped. If anything, they had grown sharper, louder, more brazen. The courtyard was transformed into a banquet space, with long tables adorned with crystal, silver cutlery, and centerpieces of cascading orchids. Guests carried glasses of champagne, laughing too loudly, trying to restore a sense of normalcy. But normalcy was gone. The phantom of Elena's presence lingered at every table, in every whispered conversation, in every sideways glance. Isabella and Marco entered the reception to polite applause. Marco's arm was looped around his bride's, but his posture was stiff, his smile taut. Isabella, though radiant in her jeweled gown, walked with an edge of defiance, her chin high, her eyes glittering with something darker than joy. Across the courtyard, Elena stood briefly to adjust Sophia's dress, then sat again, calm and graceful. She didn't rise to meet the applause. She didn't need to. Half the guests looked at the couple. The other half looked at her. Isabella's father rose first, lifting his glass. To my daughter Isabella, and to Marco, may your union be blessed with prosperity and longevity. There was clinking of glasses, murmurs of agreement, a smattering of applause. But as he spoke, his eyes lingered for a beat too long on Elena. And when he sat down, more than one guest whispered about the subtle shift in his tone, a blessing that sounded more like diplomacy than genuine joy. As the courses were served, truffle risotto, roasted lamb, and tiramisu, the attention of the guests drifted between the bridal table and the second row where Elena sat. She conversed easily with those nearby, her laughter light, her children's manners impeccable. The triplets drew admiration from strangers who leaned in to chat with them. Matteo spoke confidently about his love for football. Sophia charmed the women with her wide-eyed curiosity about the decor. Luca recited a poem he had learned in school, earning soft applause. "They're remarkable children," a guest remarked aloud. "Elena has raised them beautifully," another added. Marco heard it. Every word was another crack in the fragile mask of his pride. When it was Marco's turn to speak, he rose slowly, glass in hand. His voice faltered. He cleared his throat. "I want to thank you all for coming to celebrate with us. Isabella and I are honored." He paused, his eyes sweeping the crowd. Too many gazes darted away, sliding instead toward Elena. Something inside him twisted. He forced a smile, continuing. "Marriage is about new beginnings, about finding the person who completes you. Isabella has given me strength, support, and..." His voice caught again. He made the mistake of glancing at Elena. She wasn't staring at him, she was helping Luca cut his lamb into smaller pieces, her expression soft and maternal. But the sight pierced him. For a moment, Marco forgot his rehearsed lines. The silence dragged. A few polite coughs broke it. He stumbled through the rest, sitting down quickly. The applause was polite but muted, the kind one gives out of obligation, not admiration. Isabella's lips curled into a tight smile, but her eyes burned. As the applause died, she leaned close to Marco, her voice a hiss only he could hear. "Pathetic. You can't even speak without looking at her." Marco stiffened. "That's not true." "Don't lie to me," she snapped. Her gaze darted again toward Elena, who now listened attentively as a group of guests gathered around her. "She's stealing this wedding right out from under me, and you're letting her." Marco's chest tightened. He wanted to protest, but no words came. Midway through the evening, Isabella's mother rose unexpectedly, her jeweled hand resting on her glass. "To Isabella," she began, her voice elegant but sharp. "You have always been the jewel of our family, and today you shine brighter than ever." And to Marco, she paused, her eyes flicking toward Elena. "May you prove yourself worthy of what you've been given." The words hung heavy. Half the guests nodded in approval, the other half traded knowing glances. Marco's face flushed crimson. Isabella's hand clenched her glass so tightly the stem nearly snapped. Elena, however, remained serene, simply sipping her water. She needed no defense, others delivered it for her. As the desserts were cleared, Matteo excused himself to use the restroom. On his way back, one of the guests stopped him. "Matteo, you look just like your mother," the woman cooed. "Do you write, too?" Matteo smiled shyly. "Mama says I have a good imagination." Sophia, overhearing, piped up, "We're writing a story together. About 3 explorers who never give up." The table laughed warmly, charmed. Even Luca added, "Mama says the best treasures are found when you keep walking." It was innocent, childlike, but to the crowd, it was profound. Guests clapped softly, touched by their words. And to Marco, it was crushing. His children, his legacy, stood as living proof of the woman he had discarded. They were articulate, confident, and admired. In their presence, his own achievements felt shallow. Toward the end of the evening, an elderly professor, a longtime friend of the Rinaldi family, rose for the final toast. "I have attended many weddings," he said, his voice steady and wise. "But rarely have I seen such contrasts. Today we celebrate union, yet we are reminded of resilience, dignity, and grace." His eyes lingered openly on Elena. "True strength is not in the wealth we marry into, but in the lives we build when everything seems lost." The courtyard fell silent. His words were not a toast to Marco and Isabella, they were a tribute to Elena. Glasses clinked half-heartedly, but all eyes returned to the second row. Marco sat rigid, his fists clenched beneath the table. He could feel the humiliation burning through him, heavier than the weight of the tuxedo on his shoulders. This was supposed to be his moment, his revenge, his victory. Instead, his ex-wife had said nothing, done nothing, and yet she had stolen everything. His bride was furious. His in-laws were skeptical. His guests were enthralled by Elena and her children. And deep in his chest, Marco knew the truth: he hadn't won. He had lost, long ago, the day he abandoned the only person who had ever truly believed in him. As the evening wound down, Elena rose with her children. She thanked the guests graciously, accepted compliments with humility, and walked with steady grace back to the waiting limousine. No gloating. No grand speech. Just quiet dignity. The sight of her retreating figure, flanked by her children, was more powerful than any victory lap. She didn't need to stay and bask in the whispers. She had made her point simply by being there. The limousine's door closed with a soft click. The car glided away, leaving silence in its wake. And in that silence, Marco's wedding, his supposed triumph, lay in ruins. The hall felt colder after her departure. Conversations resumed, but they were empty, strained. Many guests found excuses to leave early. Business partners shook hands with stiff smiles, their eyes avoiding Marco's. The weight of judgment pressed down on him, suffocating. When at last the music died and the hall emptied, Marco sat alone at the head table, staring at the remnants of a feast that no longer tasted sweet. Isabella had retreated to her bridal suite, refusing to face the whispers. He buried his face in his hands, his chest hollow. All his triumph, all his arrogance, had led him here: a hollow marriage, a broken reputation, and the haunting memory of a woman he could never reclaim. For years, he had thought leaving Elena made him stronger, freer. But now he saw the truth. His pride had destroyed him. And somewhere, out there, Elena was moving forward, stronger, radiant, unbroken. Marco's tragedy was not that Elena had left him behind. It was that she had risen while he remained trapped in the ruins of his choices. And as the limousine carried her into the future, Marco was left with the echo of what could have been, and the bitter taste of a victory that had turned into his greatest defeat. The wedding ended, but the echoes of Elena's quiet triumph will last forever. This was more than heartbreak, it was the power of resilience, dignity, and strength. Thank you for watching Triumph Legends. If this story touched you, like, share, and subscribe, because more unforgettable journeys await.